Take this calabash, my child. Apply this substance on your face every day, and you will become the most beautiful woman in all the land. But remember, water must never touch your face. Never. Let me take you back to where it all began, to understand how Adana found herself in that forest, holding a calabash that promised to change her life forever. Adana was 30 years old, and she had lived every single one of those years in pain. Not the kind of pain you can see with your eyes, but the kind that lives deep inside your chest, the kind that wakes you up at night and reminds you that you are alone. She lived in a small village called Umuda, where everyone knew everyone, and where your worth was measured by how beautiful you were, how many children you had, and who wanted to marry you. Adana had none of these things. Her face was not the kind that made men turn their heads. Her body was tiny, almost like a child's, and her skin was rough from years of hard work under the hot sun. She had no mother, no father, no brother, no sister. They had all died when she was very young, leaving her alone in an old family hut that was falling apart, with holes in the roof that let the rain come in. Every morning, Adana would wake up before the sun and go to her small farm. She would dig the ground with her worn-out hoe, plant her crops, and work until her back was hurting and her hands were bleeding. She worked harder than anyone else in the village because she had no one to help her. She had to survive on her own. But hard work was not enough to earn respect in Umuda. When she walked through the village, children would point at her and laugh. Women would whisper behind her back, covering their mouths with their hands and shaking their heads. And the men, oh, the men were the worst. They would laugh out loud when she passed by, making jokes about her appearance, calling her names that cut deeper than any knife. Look at her. Who would ever want to marry that one? They would say. She looks like a dried-up stick. Even if she was the last woman on earth, I would rather die alone. Another would add, and they would all burst into laughter. Adana would keep her head down and walk faster, pretending she didn't hear them. But she heard everything, every word, every laugh, every insult, and each one felt like a stone being thrown at her heart. She had no friends. Not one single person in the entire village who cared about her. During festivals, when the whole village would come together to celebrate, Adana would join the women to cook. She would smile and laugh with them, pretending to be happy, pretending that she belonged. But inside, her heart was crying. Inside, she was drowning in loneliness. At night, when she returned to her old hut, the loneliness became even heavier. She would sit on her mat, looking at the empty space around her, and wonder why God had made her this way. Why was she so ugly? Why did no one love her? Why was she so alone? Sometimes she would cry herself to sleep. Other times, she would just stare at the ceiling, listening to the rats running across the roof, and wish that morning would never come. But morning always came. And with it came another day of pain, another day of mockery, another day of loneliness. Until one day everything changed. It was a Thursday afternoon. Adana had gone to the stream to fetch water, as she did every day. She balanced the clay pot on her head and began the long walk back to her hut. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and red, and the birds were singing their evening songs. As she walked along the narrow path, she saw a young man standing by the side of the road. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a handsome face. His clothes were clean, and he wore shoes, which meant he was not a poor man. Adana tried to walk past him without looking up, but he called out to her, "Good evening, sister." She stopped surprised. No man had ever greeted her with such respect before. She slowly raised her head and looked at him. "Good evening," she replied quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Chima," the man said, smiling. "I am new to this village. Can you tell me where I can find a place to stay?" Adana was confused. Why was this handsome man talking to her? Was he making fun of her? She looked around to see if his friends were hiding somewhere, waiting to laugh at her. But there was no one else around. "There is a guest house near the market square," she said quickly. "You can stay there." "Thank you," Chima said, still smiling. "What is your name?" "Adana," she answered, and then she hurried away before he could say anything else. But that was not the last time she saw Chima. The next day he came to her hut. Adana was sweeping the front of her house when she saw him walking toward her. Her heart began to beat fast. What did he want? Why was he coming to her house? "Good morning, Adana," Chima said, his voice warm and friendly. "Good morning," she replied, gripping the broom tightly. "I hope I am not disturbing you. I just wanted to thank you again for helping me yesterday. This village is new to me, and I don't know anyone here yet. I was hoping we could be friends." Friends? Adana could not believe her ears. This handsome, well-dressed man wanted to be her friend. I don't know what to say," she stammered. "You don't have to say anything," Chima said with a laugh. "I will come and visit you again if that is okay with you." And he did. Chima started coming to her hut every day. He would sit with her and talk about his life, his dreams, and his plans for the future. He would ask her about her day, about her farm, about her life. For the first time in her entire life, Adana felt like someone actually cared about her. She was so happy. So very, very happy. At night, she would lie on her mat and smile, thinking about Chima's visits. She would thank God for finally sending someone into her life, someone who saw her as a human being, someone who didn't laugh at her or mock her. The other women in the village noticed Chima's visits, and they began to whisper, "Why is that handsome man visiting Adana? What does he see in her? Maybe he is a witch." No normal man would go near her. But Adana didn't care what they said. For the first time in her life she was happy. Then one day, Chima held her hand. They were sitting outside her hut talking as usual, when he suddenly reached out and took her hand in his. Adana froze. Her whole body went stiff. No man had ever touched her before. Not once in her entire 30 years of life. Tears began to pour down her face. "Why are you crying?" Chima asked, looking concerned. Adana fell to her knees, still holding his hand, and looked up at the sky. "Thank you, God," she cried out. "Thank you for finally visiting me. Thank you for sending someone to love me." Chima smiled and helped her to her feet. "Adana," he said softly, "I want to marry you." Adana thought her heart would explode with joy. Marry her. Someone actually wanted to marry her. She couldn't speak. She could only nod and cry and thank God over and over again. But then, slowly, things began to change. Chima started asking for money. First, it was small amounts. "Adana, can you lend me a little money? I need to buy something." And Adana would give him whatever she had. She didn't mind. He was going to be her husband, after all. What was hers would soon be his. But the requests became bigger and more frequent. "I need money to pay for our wedding," Chima would say. "I need money to buy land so we can build our house," he would say. "I need money to start a business so I can take care of you," he would say. Adana sold her goats. She sold her chickens. She sold her cooking pots, her wrappers, even her mother's old jewelry that she had kept for years. She gave everything to Chima because she believed he loved her. She believed they were going to have a future together. Until the day she went to his house. It was a Sunday afternoon. Chima had not visited her in 3 days, and she was worried. She decided to go and check on him. When she arrived at his house, the door was slightly open. She pushed it and stepped inside. What she saw made her heart stop. Chima was sitting on his bed with a woman. A beautiful woman with smooth skin, long hair, and a body that curved in all the right places. They were laughing together, and Chima's arm was around her waist. Adana stood there, frozen, unable to move or speak. Chima looked up and saw her. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look guilty. He just looked annoyed. "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly. I came to see you," Adana whispered. "You haven't visited me in days. I was worried." The beautiful woman looked at Adana and laughed. "Is this the one you were telling me about? The ugly one who gave you all her money?" Chima laughed too. "Yes, that's her." Adana felt like someone had poured cold water over her entire body. "Chima," she said, her voice shaking. "What is she talking about?" Chima stood up, his face twisted with mockery. Did you really think I was going to marry you? Did you actually believe that someone like me would want someone as ugly as you? Adana's legs began to shake. But you said you loved me. You said you wanted to marry me. I lied, Chima said simply. I needed money, and you were stupid enough to give it to me. Look at you. You're ugly, you're poor, you have nothing. Why would I want you? The beautiful woman laughed again, and the sound echoed in Adana's ears like thunder. Adana turned and ran out of the house. She ran and ran, not knowing where she was going. Tears blinded her eyes, and her chest felt like it was being crushed. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. She didn't go home. She couldn't. The loneliness of that empty hut would kill her. Instead, she ran into the forest. She ran until her legs gave out, and then she collapsed on the ground, sobbing. She cried until her throat was sore, until her eyes were swollen, until there were no more tears left to cry. Why? She screamed into the darkness. Why did you do this to me, God? Why did you make me so ugly? Why does no one love me? Why? Her voice echoed through the trees, but there was no answer. She sat there in the dirt, broken and empty, wishing she could just disappear. And then she heard a voice. Why are you crying, my child? Adana looked up and saw an old woman standing in front of her. The woman's face was wrinkled with age, and her eyes were cloudy and white, as if she could not see. She wore old, tattered clothes, and she leaned on a wooden walking stick. Who are you? Adana asked, wiping her tears. I am someone who can help you, the old woman said softly. I heard your cries, and I have come to give you what you desire. What I desire? Adana shook her head. No one can give me what I desire. I want to be beautiful. I want people to love me. I want to be wanted. But that is impossible. The old woman smiled. Nothing is impossible, my child. She reached into her bag and pulled out a calabash. Inside the calabash was a thick, black substance that looked like oil but smelled like flowers. Take this, the old woman said, handing the calabash to Adana. Apply this substance on your face every day, and you will become the most beautiful woman in all the land. Men will fall at your feet. Women will envy you. Everyone will want you. Adana's heart began to race. Is this real? Yes, the old woman said. But there is one rule. Water must never touch your face. If water touches your face, you will lose everything. Never? Adana asked. Never, the old woman repeated. Not rain, not stream water, not even tears. If water touches your face, the beauty will disappear, and you will return to the way you were before. Adana looked at the calabash in her hands. This was her chance. Her one chance to finally be beautiful, to finally be loved, to finally be wanted. I will do it, she said. The old woman nodded. Then your new life begins now. And she disappeared into the darkness of the forest. Adana ran back to her hut, clutching the calabash tightly. As soon as she got home, she opened it and began to apply the black substance on her face. It was smooth and cool, and it smelled like jasmine and honey. She waited. And then, slowly, she began to feel her skin tingling. She ran to her small, cracked mirror and looked at her reflection. Her eyes widened in shock. Her face was changing. Her rough skin was becoming smooth and soft. Her dull eyes were becoming bright and sparkling. Her thin lips were becoming full and pink. Her whole face was transforming right before her eyes.